The following program is not a New Channels production, and New Channels has no responsibility for the content or opinions expressed therein.
Town of Volney, monthly board meeting, August 12th, 1993. As a public service to my fellow residents of the town of Volney, I have been videotaping meetings since January of 1992. My only motive is a firm belief that an informed electorate will make an informed decision at election time that will ultimately benefit us all. If you share my belief and would like to donate blank videotape to help me with my expenses to keep the service working, please call me at 598-5120. Thank you. My name is Terry Reynolds. Videotapes of all Town of Volney monthly board meetings are available to rent free of charge to the public at Video World. That is, videotapes of all Town of Volney board meetings are available to rent free of charge to the public at Video World.
Ladies and gentlemen, would you all rise while our Lord leads us in the pledge of allegiance? To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I'd like to call the meeting to order. Byron, will you call the roll, please?
Councilman Ridgway.
Here.
Councilman Rose.
Here.
Councilwoman Smart.
Here.
Councilman Warner.
Here.
Supervisor McCullough.
Here. The first meeting is a public hearing. We are to consider the amendments of the moratorium ordinance. There was a question at our last meeting concerning the moratorium as to the variance and who would be responsible for ruling on variances. And so we have met, and the attorney has, our town attorney Dennis Hawthorne Jr. has drawn up the recommendations as we perceive them, and they are the Town of Volney Temporary Moratorium on Towers Ordinance, enacted by the Town Board of the Town of Volney on July 8, 1993, is hereby amended as follows. Amendment 1. Section 7, variances, is modified by replacing the phrase Town Board wherever it appears in said section with the phrase Town of Volney Zoning Board of Appeals. Section 7, variances, is further amended by removing the phrase in its legislative discretion from the first sentence of said section. The third amendment to be considered is Section 7, variances, is hereby amended by removing the words or developer from the first sentence thereof. And the third amendment, Section 7, variances, is amended by adding the following sentence after the first sentence of said section. In determining whether this ordinance would impose an undue hardship, the board shall consider the factors set out in Section 276-B of the New York State Town Law. The resolutions themselves are in the resolutions section of the evening's minutes. You have them in that resolutions page. I will now open the public hearing relative to these amendments. Those two resolutions, excuse me, they are not on that resolutions page. They are separately, they are separate, and they are resolutions numbers 93-120 and resolution number 93-121. They are separate sheets of paper. Is there any public comment? I believe that we, the town board, through the town attorney, have made the requested changes, and I will entertain public comment. Yes.
Yes, my name is Cynthia Tolbert, and Jean Conway asked me to speak on her behalf this evening because she's out of town, and she told me that she agreed with the resolutions as they were written and felt that the town board had made the changes that were recommended, which were appropriate, that the zoning board should be issuing variances and not the town board. And she wanted to thank the town board for that.
Thank you. Any other public comment? Hearing none, I will entertain a motion for adjournment.
Motion to adjourn the public hearing.
Is there a second?
Second.
Byron, poll the council.
Councilman Ridgway.
Aye.
Councilman Rose.
Aye.
Councilman Warner.
Aye.
I missed Councilwoman Smart.
Aye.
And Supervisor McFarland.
Aye. I'm going to grab some water and be right back. I'd like to now call the regular town board meeting to order. We will dispense with the roll call. Byron, will the minutes indicate that the same members of the council are present? And I would also like to take this opportunity to welcome you back to the meetings.
It's good to be back.
The first order of business is approval of the minutes of the July 8th public hearing, and I will read resolution number 93-115. Move that the minutes of the July 8th, 1993 public hearing, amendment of zoning ordinance, having been distributed, be approved without reading. I will move it.
Second.
Any discussion? Byron, will you poll the council?
Councilman Ridgway.
Aye.
Councilman Rose.
No.
Councilwoman Smart.
Aye.
Councilman Warner.
I vote no, but I still feel that the minutes should be read.
This is the public hearing. We're voting
Still, the
upon.
minutes of the public hearing should be read.
Supervisor McFarland.
Aye. The next is Resolution 116. Move that the minutes of the July 8, 1993 regular board meeting, having been distributed, be approved without reading. I'll move it.
Second.
Any discussion? Byron, poll the council.
Councilman Ridgway.
Aye.
Councilman Rose.
No.
Councilwoman Smart.
Aye.
Councilman Warner.
No.
Supervisor McFarland.
Aye. The next, Resolution 117, move that the minutes of the July 22, 1993 special meeting, having been distributed, be approved without reading. I'll move it. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Byron, poll the council.
Councilman Ridgway.
Aye.
Councilman Rose.
No.
Councilwoman Smart.
Aye.
Councilman Warner.
No.
Supervisor McFarland.
Aye. Resolution number 118, move that the vouchers number 214, 230 through 268 in the amount of $21,657.18 general fund, and vouchers numbers 184 through 210 in the amount of $35,409.08 highway fund, having been audited, be approved, and the supervisor authorized to pay same from funds available. I will move it.
Second?
Any discussion? Byron, will you poll the council?
Councilman Richard.
Aye.
Councilman Rhodes.
Aye, only to the ones that I signed.
Councilwoman Smart.
Aye.
Councilman Warren.
Aye to the ones that I signed.
Supervisor McFarland.
Aye. The next resolution, resolution number 119, move that the supervisor be authorized to make the following transfers. From A1990.4 contingency to A9015.8 fire and police retirement. I will move it.
Second.
We have some discussion on that?
Sure.
What is the amount on that?
Around $4,500, if memory serves me correctly.
And what is the reason we're doing this?
In the budget for 1993, we budgeted $25,000 for the fireman's pension program. With the buyback for prior years, it amounted to more than we anticipated, and this will occur for the first couple of years. It came to approximately $29,000 plus, and the budget did not have sufficient in it for this specific purpose.
Did any one thing cause that oversight, or how did it come about that we were that short?
We didn't know how many firemen were going to qualify for the pension. In fact, the firemen weren't even sure how many had qualified until after our budget process was over. And a lot of the ones who did qualify were experienced firemen who had buyback coming to them.
We just underestimated something.
Yes.
Any other discussion? Byron, will you poll the council, please?
Who seconded that? Oh, I got that. Councilman Ridgway.
Aye.
Councilwoman Rhodes.
Aye.
Councilwoman Smart.
Aye.
Councilman Warren.
Aye.
Supervisor McFarland.
Aye. Under communications, I have three tonight. I have a letter from the Department of Motor Vehicles addressed, dear friend. Each year there are more than 1,200 crashes involving school buses in New York State. At least 2 children are killed and more than 1,000 injured as a result of these accidents. More children are killed or hurt walking to or from school. As traffic safety professionals, we have no more important job than protecting children. To do this, we remind motorists to be cautious when approaching school buses and to look out for children going to and from school on foot. The American Automobile Association's annual safety campaign, Schools Open, Drive Carefully, now in its 48th year, offers you an opportunity to help us deliver this important message by ordering and distributing this year's campaign bumper strip and poster. If there's anybody who is interested or a group is interested in acquiring a quantity of these bumper strips or posters, just contact me. I have the form right here. A letter from Ed Marks, Director of Planning and Community Development in the Oswego County Department of Planning and Community Development. I just received notice of grants available for construction, renovation, and operation of pump out and dump facilities for marine waste holding tanks and portable toilets. Please note that applications must be received by DEC by August 20, 1993. The good news is that the application form, copy enclosed, is very brief If you have any questions about this program, please call Jim Peterson in our office. I also have a copy of the application if anybody is interested. The last communication, we have received a notice of petition from Syracuse Telephone Company, also known as Cellular One. And it reads, please take notice that upon the petition of Syracuse Telephone Company, verified August 5, 1993, and the exhibits attached thereto, and the affidavit of Christopher Festa, sworn to on August 2, 1993, and upon the proceedings before the respondent Town of Volney Planning Board, an application will be made to the Supreme Court of the State of New York at a special term thereof to be held in and for the County of Oswego at the County Courthouse, Oswego, New York, on September 24, 1993, at 9:30 a.m. for judgment pursuant to New York CPLR Article 78, annulling the determination and action taken by the respondents pursuant to the resolution adopted by the respondents on July 8, 1993, purporting to impose a moratorium on the approval and construction of public utility communications towers, ordering the Planning Board of the Town of Volney to grant site plan approval and for such additional relief demanded in the accompanying petition of Syracuse Telephone Company. And to give you an idea of how much we received in that petition, that is it. Quite voluminous. That concludes the communications that I have received. Committee reports, assessors. Claudia, do you have a report?
Yes, we have been trying to get together with Janet LaSalle because there were some questions people had about what point we're going to go from now with the data collection. Apparently what had happened is she was our representative and then they were changing it to she and 2 other people were going to be over several other counties. In the meantime, they've decided this doesn't work, and so she isn't going to be our representative anymore, someone else is. So what she wants to do is meet with us the week of September 20th or 27th. In the meantime, she can get the new person up to running speed on what's been going on in this town, and he'll be the new person we'll be dealing with, and the 2 of them will meet with us together, and that way we can get everything running smooth. So what I need to know from the other board members is if there are any days the week of September 20th or 27th that are bad for you, so that when I call to make the appointment, I'm not making it when everyone can attend. So are there any days the week of September 20th or 27th that you don't want that meeting?
Is this a day at night or just for a call?
I think we might better make it evening to be less conflict for people.
Give me the times again.
The week of September 20th or the week of September 27th. Are there any days that you don't want me to make the meeting? And then I will call her and see what she has available out of the times we do.
I would prefer not on Friday.
22nd and 30th are days I would have a hard time attending, but if you have to have them those days, I'll make it a point.
Okay, so you said that it's the 22nd and the 30th? Okay, and Fridays are hard for you?
Fridays. I think any Friday night
Is difficult for most people.
difficult for most people.
Okay, are there any other days that you don't want it to be?
Oh, yeah, I have an appointment on Monday, September 20th, so I'm off that. The rest of my calendar's open.
Jess, are there any days that are bad for you?
As long as it's at night, they're on, it's all right.
So that's it for the conflict? Okay, I will get back to you as soon as I have the appointment set up.
Thank you, Claudia. Planning Board, Kevin said he couldn't be here tonight. I'm not sure who's got his report.
I haven't seen it, haven't
I thought he brought it in.
He brought in a report of the meeting too. Was that his report? I thought that was the minutes of the meeting, Tuesday night.
We'll do without a committee report then.
You didn't have a hearing, did
I can report one thing.
This is the planning board. So it's in my box. It says planning board report.
I made a copy of what Kevin brought in.
Oh, I see.
I don't know what it's.
Would you
I
consider
assume
that a
it was the minutes
report?
of the meeting.
It says report, I haven't had it. Planning
Why
board
don't,
report.
somebody want to read it?
The last meeting of the planning board was held Tuesday, 8/10/93. At this meeting, the public hearing was held involving a subdivision request by the Whitewaters Group that was necessary in order for them to satisfy the requirements of Kmart, its major tenant, and obtain sufficient financing to complete this project. At this meeting, two regulations were passed. Resolutions were passed. A resolution approving the request by Whitewaters to subdivide their property and recommending approval of their variance request by the Zoning Board of Appeals. A resolution to the Town Board recommending approval of their proposed amendments to the Cellular One Tower moratorium resolution. A copy of the resolution follows. The next meeting of the Planning Board will be on Tuesday, September 21st at 7 p.m. The resolution made by Kevin Conley, seconded by Dan Russo. Be it resolved that the Town of Volney Planning Board, after reviewing proposed amendments to Cellular Tower moratorium resolution submitted to the Planning Board by the Town Board, recommends adoption of proposed amendment 1, 2, and 3 and their incorporation into the moratorium resolution. Report submitted by Kevin Conley, Chairman.
Thank you, Jess. Next committee report is Zoning Board. Barb?
We held a public hearing last night for Widewaters, at which time resolution was made to give Widewaters their variances and their other requests. We have 3 individuals before us at the present time, and if all goes well, there will be a public hearing on September 8th for those 3 individuals seeking area, and I believe we would classify it use variances.
Building Inspector, Ed Kuhn.
The permits for July ran this way: 3 pools, 6 homes, 2 porches, 1 septic system, 3 garages, the first step in the shopping center, 1 shed, and 1 addition. That's a total of 18 permits in the amount of $1,829.
Thank you very much, Ed. Dog Control.
Just one second before Joe gives his report. I have a letter of complaint by Mrs. Joyce Turner and an incident that occurred on July 29 at 11 a.m. And Joe is here to address that complaint. I hope that this will straighten the situation out.
Thanks, Jim. Joe?
What do you want handled first?
I want you to give your actual report and go through your entire report, and then if you could address, the dog bite complaint in a little more detail.
Okay. I had 33 calls. Mileage on the truck, I'm not sure what that is. Betty's down at, well, she's in the vicinity of EDC and J&J Trailer Park. And a dog that's been hit by a car. We had 3 dogs down in the pound this month and 1 adoption. There's no tickets issued. And that's about all I've got for the report. Now, in reference to that letter, I received a call from Joyce Turner. I pulled the messages off the voicemail at around 10 o'clock a.m. and she called at approximately 11:01 a.m. And I had some unexpected things come up on Friday, and I never got a chance to pull the messages off the machine until either 9 p.m. or 10 p.m. Friday. I've got documentation here. When I spoke to Joyce on the phone on Monday, she seemed to be happy with the final result. Okay. I interviewed the people that owned the dog, and I think it was an isolated incident. And there's, as far as I'm concerned, no concern to any of the other people that reside in the area The dog, when I went to interview the owners of the animal, the dog showed absolutely no sign of aggressiveness towards me. And the owners of the dog also, or have had for quite some time, invisible fencing around the perimeter of the property. And when I saw the dog, it did have the collar, which activates the charge for the invisible fence. Like I said, I think it's an isolated incident. To the best of my knowledge, Mrs. Turner's happy with the end results, and I haven't heard anything back. And she told me her answering machine was on, and I tried it 16:30 hours on the 31st of July and 1st of August at 1,500 hours, and I didn't receive her answering machine, nor did I get any response from anyone at the house. She told me she was there, and she also told me that the answering machine was on, so.
You did make a report to the Board of Health?
Yes, the dog bite report has been filled out. There's a police agency that said because there was no puncture wounds or no blood from the bite, that they didn't feel that a dog bite report was necessary. So I called Keith Collins from the health department in Oswego, and he advised me to fill one out. So I had a lot of the information already, and I completed that form on Tuesday over the phone with Mrs. Turner. And she spoke with the nurse at, I believe she said it was Dr. I don't have the dog bite report here. The nurse at Dr. Campbell's office, and it was like more or less like a scratch or like a laceration where, you know, a child fell on some concrete, just scratched the skin, did rip his shorts. And just keep an eye on it. Didn't receive any medical treatment. That about sums it up. Okay.
Highway Department, Bob Purpine is not here.
I got it.
Thank you.
Superintendent's report, July 1993, 14 days mowing roadside, 1 day mowing cemetery, 14 days machinery maintenance, 12 days road repair, 4 days paving. Payroll, July 93, $17,783.01. Expenses for road repair and maintenance is $35,409.09. Total spent in the month of September was $53,192.10.
Thank you, Byron. Is Randy here for the recreation report? Jim, do you have anything for Randy?
I thought he was going to be here, so.
If he does
we
show
can
up.
wait when he comes, if he comes, we'll.
Okay. Any other committee reports? Old business? Is there any old business to come before us?
What's the status of the roof shingles?
The roof has been totally repaired and no charge to the town. I will now entertain public comment on resolutions and resolutions only, please. Any public comment? Resolutions themselves, then. The first one we are going to address is a separate sheet. This involves the State Environmental Quality Review Act resolution, amendments to Town of Volney temporary moratorium on towers ordinance. It's resolution number 93-120. You all have copies in front of you. Is there any need to read it? Hearing no objection. We're all pretty familiar with it. Byron, will you poll the council?
I need a second.
I second.
Thank you.
Councilman Ridgway.
Aye.
Councilman Rose.
Aye.
Councilwoman Smart.
Aye.
Councilman Warner.
Aye.
Supervisor McFarland.
Aye. The next, 93-121. It's It's on a separate sheet also, the resolution adopting the Town of Volney amendments to temporary moratorium on towers ordinance. The same comments apply. If anybody has any further comment or wishes to discuss it, feel free to do so. Need a second?
I would second it.
Byron, will you poll the council?
Councilman Ridley.
Aye.
Councilwoman Rose.
Aye.
Councilwoman Smart.
Aye.
Councilman Warner.
Aye.
Supervisor McFarland.
Aye. Could you pass that over? That's the agreement itself that we're going to be talking about. This is resolution number 93-122. Whereas the town of Volney did on June 11, 1985, adopt a resolution approving the Glen 2, also known as the Glen Phase 2 subdivision, as proposed by Larry E. Rowley, and whereas the town planning board did give final and unanimous approval to the subdivision on January 15, 1991, and whereas Larry E. Rowley has proceeded with the installation of the water lines, sewer lines, gas lines, and other utilities in the Glen 2 subdivision, all at his sole cost and expense, and whereas the said Larry E. Rowley has also proceeded with the construction of the roads in the said Glen 2 subdivision, and whereas the said Larry E. Rowley has presented to this town board a proposed agreement concerning the completion of the roads in the Glen 2 subdivision, now therefore it be resolved that the town supervisor is hereby authorized and directed to enter into the agreement with Larry E. Rowley as presented by Jerome Mirabito, Esquire, attorney for Larry E. Rowley. I will move it.
Seconded for discussion.
Go ahead, Howard.
Did you do any research on what we discussed the other night?
Yes, and you will find that the, I think I gave everybody a copy of it myself. I did. But it went over. On page 2 of the agreement itself, the discussion involved the town's responsibility. That is paragraph 3. And for your thoughts, I talked, and Jess's, I talked with Mr. Mirabito and Mr. Rowley and revised it for your understanding of what was transpired 2 years ago as far as the understanding of agreement is concerned. And that is that the first coat, and I will read it, it is the intent of this agreement that the developer and the town each install one course of oil and stone. In other words, Mr. Rowley will lay down the first course of oil and stone.
What I asked, who was asking Dave, is it might have been more than 2 years ago that I thought that there was some changes made on this, because there was a lot of developers starting to do subdivisions in the town, and the cost for every developer, if you do it for one, you'd have to do it for all, we would be doing all the roads for each developer. I have no problem with that, just what I asked was, did we pass a resolution to that effect? If nothing has been found.
Nothing has been found.
There may not have been a resolution passed, but it was discussed before, and Larry will recall this, Larry, because you needed to get financing from the bank at the time, and you wanted us to approve this part of your project to have the town take the surfacing of the road into our hands. At the time, the town board, if you remember, was against it because they felt we had to draw the line on paving developments, and we figured that was a good place to start. At the time, you said it was because you had talked about the Glen Phase 2 many years before, even though it was only talk, it wasn't on paper, and it hadn't been approved as a subdivision. We didn't recognize that at the time, and we said that we feel that the town taxpayers shouldn't be footing the bill for these roads like this.
And you said that would be setting a dangerous precedent because it would discourage developers from coming in here and developing properties, which may be true also, but at the time we felt that with CHIPS money being cut back and so on, that the town could not go ahead with this expenditure for this project. So what we ended up doing, I remember, is signing some kind of an agreement with you that we approved of your plan for the development, but we did not approve surfacing the roads. And that's not in the minutes anywhere where we ever finalized that, where we approved not doing that as far as a resolution saying we were never going to pave roads again, but it was discussed and we did not give you authorization for that, but we did recognize your development at the time. Do you remember that?
I'd like to answer the first, Howard. We were here in February of '91.
Right.
At that time, that was contemporaneous with the planning board approving the subdivision. The issue with the roads was brought up because historically the town had always done all the construction, installation, what have you, for the roads. At that time, I believe the town informed us at that point that there had been a change in policy prior to, after the Glen 1, but before the Glen 2. We had an agreement prepared at that time which was substantially conformed to what the Glen 1 was, where the town would do all the roads. It was explained by the town board at that time that they didn't think they could afford to do that. It was also, there was no agreement signed at that time because Larry had not started anything at the Glen 2. And what the town board felt is that they wanted some development up there before they made any commitment one way or the other. So I think what we agreed to at the time was that we would come back when there'd been substantial development, when the utilities were put in, when Larry had started on the roads, when the houses were going to start to be built. And at that point, we would see what the town wanted to do. And that's why we're here tonight.
I don't recall that being the reason we didn't approve it at the time. I remember the reason being is we just felt we had to draw the line on it because we would be obligated to do it for anybody else that came in unless we set a policy, which we didn't have at the time.
But there was no agreement made at that time.
No agreement whatsoever. No. And there also was not any resolution on the books made that would say we would or would not do it either.
That's correct.
So.
See, Jerry, Larry, I have no problem with the town doing the oil and stone, as long as we don't have a resolution someplace that wasn't agreed upon by the, and on file. I also don't want any complaints come back from the highway department because the extra cost that he hasn't figured into his budget if some other projects develop. I got no problem with the oil and stone.
Could I comment a little bit?
Sure.
This project has dragged on a long time, so it's difficult on all of us. But a few points I'd like to bring out is we had started Glen 2 in '85, and I think some of the miscommunication, whatever it may have been, was that we had to ask for all the conditions that existed in Glen 1. Basically, everything has held true. The question of the roads came up. Along in that time also came Pine Creek Estates, which the town did pay. Howard Deer Road was somewhere in there, but whatever, it doesn't matter. But the town had always paved the roads. I understood there was a concern at that point, and we did agree to come back, and that's what we're doing. Last year was so wet, it just took our schedule right away from us, and we're going pretty good now. We've got some houses in there. And we're at the point where Niagara Mohawk is almost on its way out of there. Of course, we have the rough roads, and they're abnormally thick. As Niagara Mohawk pulls out, we want to clean and kind of pursue this through, and of course, winter's coming again. It was our intent with this proposal not to ask the town to do all the oil and stone. We understood it, I understood it at that meeting that we met there, that, you know, if we did the first part, you would do the second part. And I think the other day, that was the inference that we had. And we were trying to come back and satisfy what you were asking. The other thing I'd like to address is, if you look back in your concerns with other developers, if you look back over the last, maybe Byron can help me out as well, but the last 10 or 15 years, I think all you've had is the Glen, you've had Woodbridge, which is Pine Creek, you've had Pierce Drive, you've had Rose Lane, you've had Cosimo Lane. But in the last 5 years, for sure, there's been no new roads. So I don't think we have this onslaught of developers trying to come in here and do things. Number one, I do think that it's not asking, we are generating more taxes, more tax base, and bringing some people into the community. So I don't think it's unfair of me to ask for partial help. I thought I was meeting your requirements by offering to put down the base, not just the gravel base, but the first application, and then have you do the second. I thought that's what we had talked about back in 91, Howard. I know neither of us were totally specific. In 91, I was hoping you would do all the roads like we always had. Trying to be realistic and trying to move forward, that's what we were trying to approach today. Another point, I'm sorry. We also did something else down there just in an effort. We're not trying to save, it's not like we're trying to be totally one-sided about this. We line that entire road with a fiberglass paper, which is a new product that's out there. A lot of times you put under bad spots. We put a little bit of up in Woodbridge Lane when we had some troubles on the hill there. It's Fair paper or My Fair, whatever they call it. We have about $8,000 worth of that paper under every bit of road that's up there. So everything that we did has been a concentrated effort to make sure that what is there is done right. It wasn't in an effort to cut a corner, what have you. Mr. Kerfing has been up there a couple times and instructed us to put additional culverts and different things in it, which we have. I talked to him this morning in regards to how he expected the road shimmed, leveled off, graded, final rolled, and all that. So I've been touching base with him about probably on an average once a month, asking, and he's been up there just saying, if there's anything you want to change, we'll change it, whatever you want. So we felt tonight that we were coming to you with a 60-40 deal, I guess, but meeting what you had asked for, and we'd appreciate your support on that.
Let me correct myself on one thing. First of all, there was a resolution on the books, I believe it was before I came on the town board, and that's what I was hoping Mr. McFarland might be able to find for us today, because I didn't have a chance to get over here in the last 2 days to look it up. 1989, in the previous town board before I was on, Jess, maybe you might recall, is when I remember something being approved that they weren't going to do any more roads. I wasn't party to that at the time, but that's what
See, that was mentioned to me in 91, but nobody ever
found anything.
And of course, there's been no roads, so that nothing's been.
Okay. Well, I just wanted to make that statement because I know it was mentioned before. The obvious thing is there's no clear-cut policy on roads in this town. You were only required to put down a 12-inch base when you built your road.
Well, most of it's 2 to 3 feet thick, but
I mean, that's all that's part of it.
That's kind of a standard spec.
I know when I put my road in, it was 24 inches I was told I had to do, which is considerably more expensive, but that's neither here nor there, except I'm just making it clear that there is no real policy. It's whatever you're told to do by the highway superintendent. And then as far as blacktopping or surfacing the road when it's done, there's no policy either, at least none that we've been able to find. The other thing is, too, developer versus non-developer. I wasn't a developer. I just happened to have a road there, and there was other people who lived on that road. I didn't build their houses. I had nothing to do with their properties in the town. We dedicated the road to the town, and then they took it over and took it from there.
First of all, I wasn't criticizing what you did. I'm just saying that I, and Cal Seymour are the only ones that had roads.
I know. I'm just trying to make a distinction here, though, because what a lot of communities do, and I'm sure you're aware of this, have impact fees where they share the cost, so that the whole burden of this type of expense isn't borne by the taxpayers, so that they're subsidizing a developer's development.
Okay, but also, when you talk about that, keep in mind that I have never come before the town and asked them to bond for water lines, sewer lines, and many of the things that most developers do. And what we're talking about here is really a very minimal expense. Also, there are areas like the city of Fulton that they put in everything. They put in the gravel. I mean, there's cases both ways. And I know it's also very prevalent because part of what I compete against are people that are capable of going to the city or towns and getting, not Volney, but getting the water lines and sewer lines bonded. And so there's games all over the place, I guess is what I'm saying. And this is really the only thing I've come to the town to request. We've taken a request for water and sewer with your approval to the city, and we know how that goes. And that's part of the reason all this has stumbled on so much. It's a very difficult process getting through it. Then the weather has knocked us out. But now we're rolling, and we're close to the end. We've got some people that are building there, which are taxpayers and residents in Volney, that a couple of them that weren't, two to speak of. So you're right, there's 1,000 variables out there, but I guess what I'm saying is I asked for your help in '91 on the roads. I listened to what you said, and I came back, and I'm asking for partial help. Again, we have list after list of projects that we've delivered to this town that are providing the tax base housing. So it isn't as though it's a non-performance type thing, I guess is what I'm saying. I have a track record that the houses and the developments and the projects are following.
I think it was, I say maybe 1989, when other developers were going to develop, that we did adopt a set of standard road specifications. The highway superintendent got a hold of a set and brought them to the town board, and we did adopt that set of road specifications so every developer would have something to go by. The rest of it I'm not sure on as far as the oil and stone. I've got no problem with it.
We would appreciate your help, and I think the other thing that I'd like to throw out is that even though we weren't ready for roads, we presented the project to the town formally in 1984 or 5, and that was definitely prior to this agreement. So we're not asking for, we're realizing what you brought up, trying to meet you with that, but would again like to move forward with this.
I don't think that this is an unusually hard burden to put on the town, because since all of the base work is being done and the initial course of oil and stone is being put down by the developer, that makes it the equivalent of the town repaving a road. And we do that on a regular basis on all of the roads in the entire town. And it just puts it in the same class with the older roads, since we're only putting one layer on.
Good point, Claudia. Any other discussion?
You're putting one course of oil and stone down, is that what I just heard?
Well, that's in the agreement that I just read.
That
That you
both
have
the
in front of you.
developer and the town will each put down one course.
I just happened to find this in my little file here. This is an article from the Valley News in 1991, and it states, however, in 1989, the board passed a resolution stating that costs associated with the work must be paid for by developers. Now, you're saying that this doesn't exist, or is this a misprint, or what is it?
No, what we're saying now, Howard, is actually Larry is going to do what that resolution said. He's going to put down the first basic oil and stone. That's, I think, what the resolution read. The developer would put down one coat of oil and stone. Once the town accepts it, then the town can come in and do another one.
Okay, well, the only problem I have is that we don't have a clear-cut policy. And we do this for you. Are we going to do this for the next guy that comes along, or do we draw the line next time, or what are we doing? That's what
I think
concern.
this is reasonable, and we should offer any developer the same deal.
I was going to say, Howard, to get to that point is a tremendous expenditure to put into the town, so whether it be me or you or somebody else coming into the town, they get that far, God bless them.
The other thing, Howard, is, it would be good to develop a policy, but there's different definitions for subdivision. And a subdivision isn't necessarily one house or two houses. This subdivision is going to have an excess of 40 to 50 houses. 60. You're not talking about spending a lot of money on one particular building lot.
Well, I understand. If someone's 5 miles off the main road, do we pay 5 miles back to one house? Sure, we're going to have to consider that, although we did blacktop one house that was a quarter of a mile long. I don't know why, but in any case, I would just like to see some kind of policy in place, whether we do it tonight or very soon. I think we should do that before we start making deals, so to speak, and that's my concern.
Well, on your two fronts, I would ask you to consider this. One, A, that it definitely started well ahead of the '89 resolution, so there's a question there as to how you want to read this. We're not asking for what we asked back in '89 or '91. And secondly, we talked about this before, I'd be happy, you laugh, but I'd be happy to work with somebody if they wanted to work up a formula, because I'm probably more attuned to the cost than anybody here. Narcomock, for instance, gives you so many feet per house, and then you drive a formula. I don't think it's a formula you can drive tonight, if you're looking for an intense formula that might cover everything, but it would be something that would be well worth working for. But also, by doing what we're doing, and the fact that we're under the control of the highway superintendent is also a factor. We have spent a lot of money to keep abreast of what Mr. Curfew wants to do down there, and if he asks us to do it, we've done it. And I think we have to put some faith in that, as well as the fact, how if somebody that just runs a stretch of road out and doesn't do it right, there has to be something to help there, which I think is Mr. Curfew's responsibility to hold him to that, because he's got to maintain it afterwards.
Well, that is part of the agreement. The highway superintendent has to accept the road before the town takes it over anyway. And I do know we did adopt a set of standard regulations to build a road by.
Well, as far as the road bed and the shoulders and all that, that's what we're following, is what you're talking about. In fact, I think you gave me a cross-section one time. And that's exactly
We do
what...
have a standard for development of roads on subdivisions. And we do, like that resolution says, the developer puts down 1 coat of oil and stone. And that's what it says.
And that's actually the hard one. I mean, once you've done that, all the final grading's done, and the work is over at that point.
So you feel comfortable with this agreement, Larry?
Well, I'd like a free roll.
I
pre-roll. I guess in light of everything, we're trying to meet you at where you talked about 91. Everybody says you're always in a hurry. Well, I've been 5-6 years getting here, and we're finally at a state where hopefully we'll be doing this process before you have your next meeting, because it's finally coming around and stayed dry, and things are moving quite well. And I'm sure, to be very honest with you, the neighbors would like to see it done because there's dust up there. I've swapped out a few driveways on both ends and hollered at both ends, so it would be nice to have it cleaned up and done. And we also plan to go back we're going back through now behind our walk. We just started today cleaning up shoulders and forming the gutters and things that Bob wanted, and then we're going to be seeding behind that, so that the shoulders and everything by fall will be seeded. Hopefully the road will be in, and it'll be pretty well done. But we'd appreciate your consideration.
One last question on this, number 3, the town's responsibility. It says, it is the intent of this agreement that the developer and the town each install 1 course of oil and stone, but there's no timetable for that. Doesn't say who puts down the first one and who puts down the second one, or when it has to be done, or anything.
Well, Howard, I can address that. Paragraph 3 does make an overall reference, paragraph 2 makes an overall reference to the specifications of the town highway superintendent. Okay. And he can certainly require that developer do that first.
The other thing that Mr. Gerping commented on is that this would have to be a coordinated effort, because he insisted that when we do ours, he would want to come back on before the road got dirty and do his, so that they wouldn't have any prep work to do, to speak of. I mean, a very minimal setup. And then I had to agree to stay off the road with trucks for 2-3 days till I was done.
And one more point. At some point, we'll be before the town for them to accept the roads, and if there's a problem with construction, installation, whatever, the town's remedy at that point is not to accept the roads.
That part is going to be done before any paving, wouldn't it? As far as accepting the road base itself?
I'm talking about the legal dedication.
The legal dedication.
The town would not want to accept the dedication until everything is done.
First of all, the highway superintendent and the developer say, yes, it's all right, then the dedication.
Right. The dedication is the last step. Right.
I need to coordinate with Mr. Curfew, because it has to be a big deal to make it the best deal for everybody.
Any other discussion? Byron, will you poll the council?
Councilman Ridgway.
Aye.
Councilman Rhodes.
I'm going to vote no, only because I'm not comfortable not having a policy in place. I do feel that the town should bear some responsibility, because it's going to eventually be a town road and everyone will have access to it. But I just would rather have a policy in place. I'm going to vote no until we do.
Councilwoman Smart.
Aye.
Councilman Warner.
I'm going to vote aye. I feel with the resolution that we do have on the books and the standards for building roads, maybe there are some spots, but I think we have a binding agreement.
Supervisor McFarland.
Aye.
Just take mine and give me some of that.
I'll charge it to you, Lord.
The next resolution, number 123, whereas Cotts and Associates has prepared a development plan for the proposed Volney Town Park, and whereas the current contract does not include establishment of grades for site preparation, therefore move that up to $1,000 be expended to Cotts and Associates for preparing a grading plan for the first phase. I will move it.
Second it?
Discussion?
Certainly.
Larry, before you go anywhere, could I ask you a question? A couple years ago, you helped us over at the park by putting in grade stakes for us. The purpose of those grade stakes was to establish a grade, am I correct? For the park?
Well, they weren't grade stakes. They were, we pinned out different areas for you.
For height, like height.
Elevation.
No, we pinned, you had me pin out the different areas for the fields and that. I took some grade shots trying to get it over to the boundary line. I don't believe I did elevations though. I don't believe I did
There were
grades.
a lot of stakes there that had different marks on them telling us where the grade was, because they shot with the transit and everything.
If you recall, I couldn't make the print work that you had, and I hired a surveyor to come out. I could not pick up one corner on the far side, so I hired a surveyor to come back out at my expense, not at the town's, and pick up the corner because I was having difficulty on mark. He may have put some grade lines in.
Yeah, there were some stakes that were marked, because he told me, that that's what they were for. And I just wanted to refresh my memory and make sure that you understood that's what it was as well.
I can't, because I was trying to get the pins that we talked about for the printer to pull the thing in to try to locate the different areas.
Right, we finally did get that, because I made a map up based on what you did with your people. So we could lay the fields out and get them in proper perspective.
But at that point, I don't know what he laid on there as far as grades go. Not trying to be evasive, but I just hired him to go out and do whatever he had to do. That was about 10,000 surveys pins ago, Howard.
Okay. Well, in any case, what I'm alluding to is that we did have stakes over there one time that did tell us the different elevations. As a matter of fact, we had a topographical map made up by Bob Burley. As far as the drainage tiles go, which I guess this is leading into, I don't understand why our highway superintendent was very knowledgeable in that type of drainage and so on, couldn't do this himself, why we need to hire someone else to do that. So I guess that's my question to the rest of the board.
The purpose of Cotts and Associates doing it is they will prescribe the relative elevations for the various parts of the activities planned for the park, and each area of that for each activity requires a specific grade relative to the rest of the area, and that is their intention to provide that information so that when somebody comes in with a bulldozer to take off and strip the land and prepare it for drainage tile, they know how much to strip and where to strip.
I understand that, but I feel confident that we have people in town that could do that, either in our highway department or contractors that have already been willing to donate their time. I'm just wondering why we want to spend this money.
Excuse me, but the expertise of Cotts and Associates is to know what the relative grades are, and that's what basically we're paying them for, not to set stakes but to determine what the proper grades are.
Exactly.
And Cotts and Associates are the experts, and that's why we hired them.
I just feel if there's people in this town that could do the same job for either nothing, donating their time, or our highway superintendent who could probably volunteer the time to do the same.
Any other discussion?
Well, it also adds an extra layer of protection for the town if you have an outside designer do something, because that way if someone gets hurt at a later date and said, well, the grade was different, my car wouldn't have gone off the road, this wouldn't have happened, whatever, that way there wasn't anybody who was affiliated with the town or a town volunteer, so it makes it us that did it. Just gives you that little extra layer of protection so that you aren't as responsible.
We'll still get sued, but
Yes, but it lessens the blow. It makes it that much harder.
I don't know if it's worth $1,000 for that.
Any further discussion? Byron, will you poll the council, please?
Councilman Ritchie.
Aye.
Councilman Rhodes.
No.
Councilwoman Smart.
Aye.
Councilman Warner.
No.
Supervisor McFarland.
Aye. The next resolution, number 124, whereas a vacancy was created by the resignation of Linda Howard as assessor for the town effective July 31, 1993, and whereas an advertisement soliciting applications was duly placed, therefore move that the applicant, David K. Winfield, be appointed as assessor for the town of Volney effective immediately. I will move it.
Second.
As most of you are aware, Dave is also on the zoning board, and there is no conflict serving as assessor and serving on the zoning board simultaneously. Any discussion?
Yes. I'd just like to go on record as saying I'm in support of the sole appointed assessor, which most towns in the state of New York are going for. And the reason they're going for it is because the sole appointed assessor has to have 6 years of education has to have all the state requirements, and it's a 6-year position, and it does not have to be a resident of the town. It could be someone from outside the community who is bipartisan, will come in here and not play politics with the roles. And also, we've gone through 2 assessors in the last few years here who just barely got their feet wet, collected their checks, and they were gone. Never really learned the ropes. So I am opposed to having the elected assessors to begin with, and I just wanted to make that statement.
Are you opposed to David K. Winfield?
Well, he's going to fit the description of what I'm opposed to. It doesn't matter what the name is, it's the position I'm opposed to.
The person that he is replacing, Linda Howard, wasn't in the position very long, but since she also worked for the county in that department, she was already trained, so there was no training expense on behalf of the town.
Yeah, but that's not always the case. Most of the time we do have to train them, and by the time they learn it, it's several years down the road. And some of them don't get it at all. We've had some that resigned because they didn't get the schooling or didn't pass the test. So I prefer to see, once again, it's the bipartisanship that I'd like to see on that position.
Byron, will you poll the council, please?
Councilman Ritchie.
Aye.
Councilman Rhodes.
No.
Councilwoman Smart.
Aye.
Councilman Warner.
No, because he has one appointed office, and I don't feel that we should have these people more than one, or the same person filling 2 or 3 offices in the town.
Jess, if there were any other applicants, that might be a consideration, but Dave was the sole applicant for this position.
Supervisor McFarland.
Aye. The next resolution involves the new deputy code enforcement officer, and you'll notice that the name is blank. We interviewed 3 very fine people just prior to the public hearing, and unfortunately we can't appoint all 3. So you do the best you can and hope you made the right choice, and we think we did. This is number 125, whereas a vacancy was created by the resignation of David C. O'Brien as Deputy Code Enforcement Officer for the town effective July 31, 1993, and whereas an advertisement soliciting applications for this position was duly placed, therefore move that the applicant, Richard William Blake, be appointed as Deputy Code Enforcement Officer for the town of Volney, effective immediately. I will move it.
Second.
Any discussion?
Yes, I think you should put assistant rather than deputy there. Because I think we got ripped over the coals for calling him a deputy, like, in the past. I think the state told us that we couldn't call the assistant building inspector deputy.
Byron, I'll tell you what, let's leave it deputy, and if we find it should be assistant, we'll change it.
I think that might be because most of the times when it is a deputy, it is appointed by the person who has the main position, as in the town clerk appoints the deputy. Where it says Ed Kuhn is not appointing, probably assistant is correct.
I think that is correct.
Assistant?
I would change it.
All right.
Make an editorial change.
Okay.
Well, I did on my own.
Okay.
I didn't know you were going to allow me to make it.
But I already had made it.
Thanks, Byron. Keep us honest here. Okay,
Who moved it? Who seconded?
I'll move it.
I seconded it.
Okay. Poll the council.
Councilman Ridgway.
Aye.
Councilman Rhodes.
Aye.
Councilwoman Smart.
Aye.
Councilman Warren.
Aye.
Supervisor McFarland.
Aye. Before we leave resolutions, there is one point that I did want to make for the record, and that in voting for the changes to the moratorium on towers ordinance, we have received from the Oswego County Department of Planning and Community Development a letter stating that they have no objection to our making these changes. Also, the Town Planning Board also agreed that these changes met with their approval. And that should show on the record. Any other new business? Any petitions to be brought before us? I will now open the floor to public comment. Yes, sir.
My name is Randall Marcus. I represent Syracuse Telephone Company, Cellular One. And I thought it might be important to point out to you, Chairman McFarland, Supervisor McFarland, and the board that in reference to the lawsuit that you described at the outset of the meeting, the petition that you read the title of was only the petition for the Article 78 proceeding that's been commenced. Simultaneously, a second lawsuit has also been commenced that you might notice within the package of papers that you referred to by summons and complaint, which addresses a variety of additional points beyond the Article 78. And given what I see as obvious, very careful attention the board pays to the town's fiscal responsibilities, I thought it might be important to make the point to the board and to the public for the record that the second of the two lawsuits is based on causes of action ranging from the taking of the plaintiff's property rights without due process of law, the taking of the plaintiff's property without just compensation, unlawful zoning not in accordance with the requirements of law, stopgap zoning not in accordance with the requirements of law, spot zoning not in accordance with the requirements of law, unlawful piecemeal zoning, and unconstitutional discriminatory zoning. I should go on to point out that these bases for the lawsuit provide Syracuse Telephone Company with the right to collect costs against the town, which have been requested in the moving papers, which include all costs in connection with the lawsuit and costs that are incurred as a result of the moratorium having been imposed, ranging from costs as a result of the delays to Syracuse Telephone Company, legal fees and disbursements, And I felt that it is quite important since it's rarely the case that a town takes an action such as this that goes so far afoul of the law as to give a plaintiff the opportunity to get a suit brought on the basis of these causes of action, that the town stands to lose not only the lawsuits, but a considerable amount of money in the way of damages as a result of the other bases for the second of the two lawsuits. Thank you.
Mr. Marcus, is that your name? Well, I'd like to, my name is Cynthia Tolbert, and I'd like
Excuse me, Cynthia, 1 second. Could you back up? Could you spell your name for the town clerk?
It's Randall, R-A-N-D-A-L-L, Marcus, M-A-R-C-U-S.
Thank you.
I'd like to remind the board of a statement that my husband made at the last meeting about who the town of Volney belongs to. Mr. Marcus is representing a telephone company who says because they want to use a site, rent a site here, and our town has said we think we need to look at the zoning, we need to address it carefully before we allow towers to go anywhere. We're going to sue you, and you better be careful because we've got the money and we're going to take more. I don't think we should be intimidated by Cellular One. I believe this community belongs to the citizens of Volney. Mr. Rowley could certainly put an end to this if he chose to withdraw his rental agreement with this company. However, he has not chosen to do that, although this town has granted him the favor of paving his road, which of course will bring tax dollars to Volney and won't hurt any of us. But there is no reason why any community should be intimidated by a company. Cellular One can come to Volney and put up a tower. No one has told them they can't. They know that a moratorium is a legal way to stop something when the zoning has not been updated. The board has told us they are currently working on the zoning. I don't know if that is true or not. You as members of the board know that. I believe that you should be working on the zoning. This is what we came before you several months ago and asked you to do when this application came in. We also know that the planning board did allow a cellular phone tower to be sited in Volney already, and the precedence it set was completely different than what Cellular One is asking for. That tower was sited on 6 acres of land, and the closest residence was 2,000 feet away. This tower will be sited on a very small parcel of land which is rented by the company, and the closest house will be 700 feet away, and there are 86 homes in the immediate vicinity of it. It is an industrial zone. Perhaps Volney should have an industrial buffer. If an industrial zone butts up to a residential zone, don't we want some kind of protection? And I strongly urge this board to act in the interest of the citizens of Volney and not out of fear from an outside company. This is our community. We do have a right to enact ordinances which we believe are fair, and we don't need to be bullied.
In response to, excuse me, 1 second, Mr. Marcus. In response to both people that have just spoken, I'd like to reply that these documents have been placed in the hands of our town attorney. It is his responsibility to defend the town. We are not going to take any action either now or in the immediate future because the whole issue is a legal matter, and I cannot respond to either Mr. Marcus or to you. It's in the hands of an attorney. We are not going to do. This board cannot or will not, as far as I'm concerned, do anything because we everything that we can do in the public's interest has been done. Is that a fair statement? Thank you. Yes.
My
Joyce Turner. Mr. Ridgway, I was just wondering, Joe and I did talk and, you know, things got done. But my concern is the time span. And I had told Joe my son had gotten bit at 11 o'clock in the morning on a Thursday morning, and I didn't hear from him till Monday evening. And he said he tried calling Saturday and the machine didn't click on. I'll give him the benefit of the doubt there, but with a dog bite, I contacted 5 different areas, and I know the dog physician is part-time. Now, I finally, around 5 o'clock Thursday evening, found the owner myself because I'd been calling the neighbors on the street and nobody was home all day. I had a feeling it was a neighborhood dog. If this dog hadn't had its updated shots, that would have been 5 days that a dog that could have been rabid wasn't even checked into. The sheriffs didn't do anything when I called. Like I said, it happened Thursday morning around 11. I finally heard from Joe Monday night. That's 5 days later. I couldn't get through Betty LeClaire's number. I called the town hall and they said to try Betty LeClaire or the troopers, and you were working. What do you do?
I can't respond now. Joe's gone. I wish.
Well, I know this is public comment, and
well,
but
but without Joe here with it documented, I
well,
can't
I'm
give you
asking you now, what would you do now? It was a private road, but there was no postings, but children ride on that road and go on that road. I know Joe said the dog was friendly when he approached it. Well, a lot of times a family dog is friendly, but if there's a child alone riding a bike to a friend's house, I'm just wondering if a case happened again to somebody, what do you do? That's a long time. I mean, I was a nervous wreck.
I cannot honestly respond to that. The reason I can't is because Joe gave you some time span that he tried to respond.
Which is over 48 hours away.
Now let me finish, please. The problem that I have is Joe evaluated the situation. I understand that there is the silent system with the dog with a collar on and that he's confined to an area. And when Joe was here saying that you were satisfied, had you not been, I didn't understand why you didn't make a comment at that time and ask Joe.
People have spoken out of public comment time before and been told to wait to public comment. I'm not complaining about what happened now. My situation ended up being okay. What I'm asking is, what do you do? 5 days. Now, you said at the last meeting or a few meetings ago, the state gives you 48 hours to contact. Now, 48 hours would have been Saturday morning. He never tried calling, according to him, till Saturday evening. He said he couldn't reach me. I was gone from probably 4 to 8:30. I was home all day Sunday, and I was home all day Monday.
How many times did you have this call?
Well, with a child, having a recording that a child has been bitten and we don't know who the dog belongs to, I would say that if he was busy and they felt that they should check in with the rabies going around and coming closer and closer to this area, maybe he could contact you or somebody and say, look, I can't reach her, would you try during your free time? Something like that. That's what I'm suggesting.
I'll try to work out a policy on it. It's a situation.
Just in case it happens again, it's like there should be some sort of balance.
And I will agree with you on that.
One more thing I have a question about is to the town board. A while ago, you had mentioned that the town supervisor, or highway superintendent, was going around to check the roads to see which ones needed repair more, and I started thinking, Mr. Rowley was asking for roads to be done. Did they decide on whose roads should be repaired or what? I live on Rose Lane, and we have cars. There's 4 homes on the road, and we have cars going on the wrong side of the street around a bend. We do have children on that road. And with school buses coming, and you're going to start getting the rain and fall, it's very muddy, and when you go into these trenches, I call them trenches, they have gotten very deep. When they're wet, your whole vehicle slides. Now, I'm concerned because not only my kids are on the road, being off a highway, we also get other children riding their bikes because it's off the highway. And I'm concerned about cars coming around the corner on the wrong side of the street to go around the holes. I was just wondering if we were on the list for repair, or do you know?
When he went around, he said which ones definitely didn't need anything, which ones needed minor patching, and which ones needed a lot of work. Basically, within that general framework, if one road starts going downhill faster than another, obviously it moves up the list. The best thing to find out where your road is compared to the other roads in the town is to just give Bob a call.
Okay, I just didn't know.
Yeah, because it goes by the weather and what happens to each road.
Because with buses coming down, it's gonna be a lot worse.
He has noticed the damage, it's just where you are compared to other people's problems.
Mr. Kuhn, I didn't hear your comment a few minutes ago. Was that a public comment? Would you care to repeat what you said?
You wanted to hear my comment?
Yeah.
I'm sorry, I think probably you did.
No, I didn't.
What I said was, if the dentist gets up to start in, I'm on my way home.
Oh, well, good night then.
Yes.
Is he elected, or is he appointed? What is his position exactly?
Hired a handicap program.
Is he elected or appointed? I got a letter from Mr. Kuhn several years ago, and I made him a telephone call and told him if he ever wrote me a letter like that again, I was going to sue him. I won't tell you what it was about. It's immaterial. I don't know why Mr. Kuhn doesn't like dentists. I don't know. I didn't hear what he said. If I can editorialize, after all the dust has settled on this water thing, there's just not much to moan about anymore. Howard, Mr. Rose, what's this $12 fee for a Oswego County business that you didn't sign? Can you tell me what that's about? On this following vouchers were not signed. Number 243, it says Oswego County business, $12.
That's a magazine subscription that Mr. McFarland presented a bill for, and I didn't sign it because I didn't see where it had any relevance to town government. It's a magazine subscription that, I don't know, and tell me, Dave, why do you think it's relevant to the town to have that subscription here?
What's the magazine?
It's a business publication on county businesses, and it's just full of articles on businesses and so on, and I don't know, I just didn't think it had any relevance to town government, so.
Probably no direct relationship, but like many business periodicals, it's good to have it, to read it, and to know what's going on in the town, or in the county.
At the taxpayer's expense. I mean, it doesn't really relate to our town, it's just a periodical on businesses. It just doesn't make sense to me.
It's for information purposes. I've read that.
I read it already, Jim, and I mean, it's a personal thing. It's not anything that has to do with town government. It's a personal thing if you want to know.
I believe it should be in the town hall. I believe it should be here. I think if people admit they want to look at this, my own personal feeling, I would certainly not object to having Newsweek or a magazine.
I think it's been answered, Mr. Kessler.
Regarding voucher 257, Ed Kuhn's travel expenses. I wasn't going to bring that up. The poor man's not here to defend himself. Why didn't you sign those vouchers? I see that you also didn't, Jesse. For the same reason as there...
Start with, I was in support of appointing him to that position, and I don't have anything to do with his paycheck. That comes through the treasurer, so I just object to paying somebody I didn't appoint.
Not pay.
It's traveling expenses.
It's expenses.
Well, I didn't agree to appoint him, so I don't feel that.
In other words, if an expense is legitimate, you don't believe in paying it just because you don't like the individual. And that's
It's not the
basically what you...
individual. It's the way it was done, and I'm not going to get into it. It's the same way with this magazine. I think if you look it up, I did not sign that voucher to pay for that magazine. One comes to my house. I'm not subscribing to it.
I also didn't sign it because I didn't approve of Mr. Kuhn's appointment, mainly because of the way he treats certain people like yourself, who I think he should be fair with everybody, and he is not a fair man. He's also written me nasty letters before I was ever on this town board as a private citizen in his capacity as a code enforcement officer, and I don't think we need people like that in important positions like that in this town. So that's why I haven't signed any of his bills the last 2 years.
Well, the letter I was referring to that he wrote to me was not in his official capacity as a town official. I didn't mean to imply that. I just didn't like what he said in the letter. I didn't like what he said tonight either. I won't ask whose house that was that all those new Fords were parked at during the air show with the big sign out front displaying the Rayner's Fords out here in Volney. I asked somebody about that, and they said they thought that was Ed Kuhn's house. I hope that's not true.
He doesn't own the house.
Oh, he doesn't own the house?
No, he doesn't. He rents.
Oh, okay. Well, I was just concerned about whether he was out and running around here enforcing the codes on signs. I see that there's some signs around here that have been altered or had to be taken down because they didn't meet the code enforcement. And, gee, I would hate to think that Ed Kuhn, that somebody slipped one by old Ed there and had that big sign out there that was bigger than it might have been, or maybe not as permanent as it should have been, or had all these new cars parked out there for the people to look at on their way to the air show. But he's not here, so I guess we won't find out the answer to that. Thank you.
While we have our zoning board hearing, I'm glad you mentioned that, because I also saw those cars there. Barb, does our zoning allow for cars in a residential zone to be sold like that on a weekend basis? I mean, I know that some people have been made to take their signs down because they tried to sell used cars in a residential area and it's not allowed.
Off the top of my head, Mr. Rose, I really don't know, but I will be more than happy to look it up for you and get back to you on it. Okay?
I would think that if you can't do it, you can't do it. There's not a temporary basis or a permanent basis in the zoning that I remember. And if he was allowing that in front of his own house for a weekend, I would think he's in violation. I know it's not his house, but he lives in the apartment there, and he's the code enforcement officer, so I would think that he would have enforced the code in his own front yard, especially since he's done it with other people in the last year that were also trying to do the same thing. There was at least probably 8 cars lined up across his front yard with a sign about 20 foot long. I believe it said Rain or Ford on it, and they were selling cars there during the air show.
I was out of town that weekend.
Okay, well, I saw it too, but I don't really know what it's all about, but I would think that if no one else can do it, that Mr. Kuhn should at least make sure it's not done under his nose. In any case, if you could check on that, and if it isn't the case, let Mr. Kuhn know that he has to abide by the same rules that the rest of us do.
Yes?
I'd like to make a comment on the park. I am opposed to the money that is being spent on this park now. At the beginning, it was mostly a volunteer project, and I just wanted to relate to the board. I see that the camera's here today, and this meeting is also being shown in Palermo, and I had the opportunity of going to the Palermo Town Park for the Hinman reunion last week, and everybody commented, what a beautiful park, what a great park. But I didn't know that I was ending up being the butt of the joke. They said, well, some of my relatives says, why not have it at Volney next year? And I said, well, didn't you folks spend a lot of money in planning your park? No. And they told how much was volunteered. I know that you're looking for grants for this park and having it all professionally done, but I want you to know that in the end, we the taxpayers are still going to be paying for that money that you're looking for. And it could have been done voluntarily like the Palermo Park was. And many people in Palermo see this town board and see what you folks are doing about the park. And they envy us with the industry we have, and they're looking at how we're going about doing this park, and we are the butt of many jokes.
Yes, sir.
I'd like to provide a brief response to the woman who questioned the board in regard to the dog control officer's actions, and point out that if I understood her concern correctly, she placed a call to the town's representative and hoped to get a response, didn't get one for in excess of 48 hours, and I can understand her concerns for having a possibly rabid dog running around. I'd like to point out that if cellular telephone service were available in the area, it would be a simple matter to reach someone such as a dog control officer on a moment's notice to a mobile cellular phone. Supervisor McFarland, you yourself earlier pointed out that the state DOT is in the process of rejuvenating their annual campaign in regard to traffic safety, having to do with the fact that schools will soon be open. Some comments were made in regard to another matter tonight about certain residences being located on remote roads or roads that are paved to less than high caliber, preventing transport as quickly or as easily as might be possible. Again, it's a situation where cellular communications would make it easier and faster to provide the public safety services that any town ought to be seeking to provide to its residents. And thereby I'd like to point out again, because it doesn't seem to have sunk into anyone who's made comments about this matter, that the Cellular One company is a public utility under New York law, just as any other public utility that you'd care to mention. It is not simply another company coming into a town trying to do business somewhere that it doesn't happen to do business. It is authorized by the state of New York to cover this area with cellular service. It has an obligation to fulfill the requirements of New York State public utility law to provide that service. And it's a service that most places wish to have. And if you had an opportunity to look into those communities that have recently been provided with cellular service in the area, I can't imagine that you would have any negative comments made as a result of the public safety and convenience and ease of communications that would result from a company fulfilling its requirements under New York law. And it's only because the applicable laws permit the construction of a tower in the location that has been selected that Syracuse Telephone Company went forward with the application in the first place. The town zoning law permitted it, the state laws which apply to such a thing permitted it, and then the town decided on the basis of Syracuse Telephone Company's application, as was mentioned earlier, that they would revise their consideration of this portion of the zoning law. You mentioned earlier also that the papers submitted seemed to be quite voluminous. I should point out it was quite easy to make them that voluminous. They initially were quite a bit more voluminous because it's a rare case that we have so much to support our position. And I represent several municipalities in Tompkins County and have for quite a few years. And in addressing issues such as the possibility of an Article 78 proceeding, I haven't ever seen a municipality take such a fiscally irresponsible position as to fly directly in the face of applicable law when it was plainly stated to the town's attorney in advance of the actions that the town took what the results would be. And it's just an unfortunate situation that this is going to proceed. Of course, it will, and result in the delays to Syracuse Telephone that it will, when it could have been a very simple matter. And the changes in the town zoning ordinance that you may be investigating at this point could easily have proceeded at whatever pace you decided to proceed without interfering with the rights that a particular public utility has under the law. So thank you again.
Bill? How do I start? Bill Pierce, live on Fay Street.
we do have cellular phone service in this community. Matter of fact, I think we are a customer. The town highway superintendent has one of his vehicles, I believe. Maybe we ought to change the policy, saying that the dog 598 dog isn't sufficient enough. There's modern technology, same way cellular telephone is supposed to be modern technology. If the human factor don't work, it don't matter if you got a call pager, if you got a cellular phone. If the human factor don't work, none of that technology is no good. So, it's I think reading over the court thing, what they propose here and everything, they ought to invest in a new tape recorder. Everything I read, everything that was spoken, that we were talking about the unfortunate gentleman that got electrocuted in Syracuse, which I'm surprised if they are residents of the Syracuse area, they know about Niagara Hill, that accident when 2 people got killed. That's why we got our concerns on these towers that we put in for the safety of the things. But they only read their own summons, they will know the other things about it. But I read a lot of planning news, and it gets kind of hard sometimes to plan and allow allowances on roads and stuff like that. Our town gave a certain developer a lot of cost reduction. We excused him from putting in curbing, sidewalks, and some things like this, so that he could cheapen his 100,000 plus home development. But now he's back again to get more cost reduction. On planning news, one thing you have to look for, residential development, assessors like to use and everything is bringing in tax base. For each one residential development that you have in your community, it costs $1.16 of a tax dollar to support that residence, compared to 69 cents for one farm and 29 cents for one industry. So bringing in single new family residents don't bring in a tax base. They don't pay for the community services that it has. And this is why you are the books. Yes. $1.16 for residential development, 69 cents for farm, agriculture, and 29 cents for industry. On a tax dollar. For each dollar taken in, that's what it costs to provide the community services for your taxes.
Okay, and what is the source of the figures that you have?
The planning news, I have a copy of it, and I'll give you a copy of it if you want a copy of it.
Yeah.
That's all I had to say for the time being. Thank you.
I would just like to suggest, Marie Austin, I'm sorry, that you might want to call Bob Kirby, because he does have a cellular phone, so maybe that's the answer instead of trying to call the dog control officer. The other thing that you talked about, I would just like to comment on, when you talked about the resolution in 1989 with Larry and the paving of the roads. Josh, you know, you were on the board at the time, you were the chairman of the highway department, that come to us and asked us to pass this resolution because we had just lost a great deal of CHIPS money from the state, and we lost our federal revenue sharing. So that's one of the reasons that we had to go on record to say that we would not pave any further roads. And if you can't find that resolution, somebody better check that paper shredder, because I know that motion was made and passed unanimously by this town board, and it's got to be on file somewhere. And Josh, you came to us, you asked us, and we did it.
Because the highway superintendent came to me and asked for
That's right.
percent.
That's right. And that's why we did it, because Bob Kirkland at the time. So that, in fact, was done. And I'm still not sure, are you paving his road or just oiling and stoning it?
He's going to put down the first coat of oil and stone, and we'll put down the second oil and stone.
Okay, and then when he dedicates the road over to the town, then you pave it? Is that how it works?
It's got to be dedicated before we pave it, I think.
When do you pave it?
After it's dedicated.
Okay, now Howard got a road down there, and I've drove down it many times. It's been dedicated to the town for years. That road's never been paved. So how do you get your town road paved?
That's what I was saying. We need a policy, and there is no policy. It's at the discretion of the highway superintendent. Now, he can easily say, well, that road needed it worse than others, but we don't know that. We've got to trust him on that. And I will submit that I know some roads that weren't in bad shape that got paved, and others that still needed desperately that haven't been paved. The reason why, I don't know.
Because I know on Lanning Drive down, Sherman, I know that road, they've been talking about paving it, and there were some problems there. And I know a lot of the neighbors have been coming to the board asking you to get that paved as well. So I just don't know how they decide. I know Bob decides who does the paving, but after a road is dedicated, then it's usually paved, not before.
Well, also, you remember the agreement that we're supposed to sign as a town board with the highway superintendent. It was signed by the majority of this board before we ever even knew which roads he had in mind. So we did not do our job, at least they did not do their job, by seeing a list of roads that needed it and inspecting them first. We went out after the fact, which didn't mean a whole lot.
But that was a proposal that night when Larry Raleigh came with Jerry Marvito. They wanted the road to be paved, and we didn't sign it. If you look at that form, it was never signed by the board, and so it was more or less dropped. So that's what I recall that vividly, because there was a lot of discussion on it. The other thing I want to ask tonight, I've had a lot of neighbors contacting me about what's going on around Route 6 with all the excavating of the soil and things, and I wish you would have waited and let Ed Kuhn stay so I could have asked him these questions. But it's too bad that he left, because I know you're going to say I have to ask Ed Kuhn these questions, but I also know that Kevin Conley, I spoke to him, and he was going to be here tonight. I don't know what happened. He's been in contact with you, Claudia. Maybe you can update us, because a lot of neighbors are concerned. Could you please tell us what's going on over there?
When I talked to the building inspector, what it was is there was one part that was already subdivided, and a home is going on there that's a separate thing, and they have a building permit. And then they also have a permit to take off topsoil.
And where do they get that permit from for topsoil? From New York State?
DEC.
Is that for a mining permit, or is that just for soil, topsoil? Is that a mining permit they have?
It's a mining permit for topsoil.
Okay, so it's my understanding, if they were gonna go there and do mining, they had to come back before the zoning board for a special use permit.
There's a difference between topsoil and subsoil.
That's what I'm asking you, what is he doing?
It is for topsoil only, not subsoil.
And then how much can you take off?
Only topsoil.
How much limit, there's gotta be a limit.
I'm not familiar with the DEC rules on that.
So, could you answer that, Mrs. Foster? How much topsoil they can remove?
I have no idea what the DEC
Topsoil varies in depth, wherever you go.
Well, so you don't know how much you can excavate before it becomes mining? I mean, there's gotta be a
You
limit.
can't go past the topsoil. The thing is, topsoil can vary. Some areas, the topsoil could be extremely thin and only be an inch or two. In some places where it has been wet and it's a swale area on a farm, especially where things settle in, excavators have told me sometimes they've found topsoil 2-3 feet deep.
So if he just removes topsoil, then he does not have to go to the zoning board for a special use permit, is that correct? Okay. The other question is, I have not seen a building permit down there. Maybe there's been one issued this last week for that other trailer. I have the minutes here of the meeting when we went before the planning board that discussed this Gregory proposal, and what it said is they would give him a permit for a minor subdivision for up to 3 partials, and that's what he did. And then if he was to go to any more, then he had to go to the planning board for a site plan approval. Is that yes or no?
The only amount that Ed mentioned to me that had been separated was 1 parcel.
Right, I understand that, but for him to do that, if he was to put that 4th one in, it was my understanding he had to go for a site plan approval. Want to brief us on it? I know that you're...
I got a question. Is that the parcel where the other trailer used to be?
Yes.
Okay, that's a separate parcel. That was not originally part of his lot. That was a separate 1-acre parcel.
Oh, he just purchased that, is what you're
Yeah,
saying?
he bought it from that girl, remember she moved the trailer in there?
That's not part of the minor subdivision that...
No, he bought that as a separate 1-acre lot.
Okay, let's say if he puts in another trailer or module, whatever, behind this one, now does he have to do a site plan approval?
It would be, if he makes another split, that would be the fifth one.
Then he
So
would have to go
that
for
would make it a major, which would have to have site plan approval.
So you don't know if the DEC put a limit on how much soil he could, how many truckloads or something?
I'm not familiar with the
Okay, I was
DEC rules on
contacted.
topsoil.
Okay, thank you.
Joyce?
I just wanted to ask a question, but first of all, over the dog issue, it was my son I was concerned about, and I did get through on phones. I got an answering machine and people, so it's not that I couldn't reach anybody, so your phone wouldn't help me. My question on the recreation park is, you're paying $1,000 more to have the grading or whatever done by this company, or whatever that was for, and Claudia, you stated that it would be safer because that way it's guaranteed if something happened with somebody.
What it is the more that you do yourself, the more liability you have if you get into a litigation proceeding, because they said there was something about the design that was the reason why someone got hurt.
Well, what about the
It's
voluntary
a
part?
layer of protection. No, volunteers are not considered separate from the town. They are considered an extension of the town.
I was just wondering how that
Yeah.
affects us getting volunteers.
That's the only way that there is any insurance coverage when volunteers do things, is because they are considered an extension of the town when they volunteer. So that also makes it so they're part of the town and doesn't give us separate protection like having an outside planner.
When the volunteer is a volunteer, whether they do that part of it or the park, that's why I was confused
Yeah,
with what
well,
the difference would be.
We aren't concerned about liability from having Northern give us gravel. There isn't.
But what about volunteers coming in and building the park? That's what I was wondering.
It's going to be basically done by the road crew.
And I believe also that you get volunteers. We're working with Tony Kotz, and as long as he's under direct supervision, and as long as there's a plan that's been certified by a park and planning developer, I would tend to think that that would help us a great deal in our.
I'd like to interrupt this public comment. Randy Bennett reminds me is here. Randy, do you want to give the recreation report now?
I can. Okay. Our activities for the past month, we had a pretty full month. We went on the lake cruise on July 16th. We took approximately 2 busloads of children down there and did the cruise on the lake. We had kids bingo on the 22nd. We had approximately 50 kids show up for that. They had a real good time with that. They seem to be enjoying the bingo a lot. On August 3rd, we went to the Chiefs game. They lost again. But we took a busload of people down there. Kids had a pretty good time. And it's a long night for the Chiefs game for some of the younger ones, but they seemed to weather the storm pretty good. The counties had Camp Happening going on from the 2nd to the 6th. And had a pretty good showing this year, considering the weather. Upcoming, we have Fulton Speedway on the 14th, this weekend. For the second year, families are free. When the kids are accompanied by a parent, the parents and the children get in free. Last year we took about 60 kids, and this year we've got almost 90 signed up for that race this weekend. We also, at the end of the race, if the kids stay to the last one, they're going to get their picture taken sitting on or around or whatever the winning car for the last race, and they're going to put that in the paper for us. So I really want to thank the Fulton Raceway. This is 2 years they've allowed us to do this, and it's real nice of them. Mud Mania, the thing we're going to try this year, has been postponed. We haven't had any parent volunteers. As I stated at the last meeting, we needed at least 3 or 4 people to get involved with this because it's a big undertaking, and I don't mind doing a good portion of the work, but it's about a 3 or 4 day preparation for this. We're going to try to do it in September after the kids go back to school, and I hand out my fall schedule, see if we can get some others. I apologize to the kids who signed up, and I will keep that sheet, and I will call them if we institute this again. On the 22nd of August, Swan Valley Game Farm on Honey Hill Road. The kids with the ID cards don't have to do anything. The parents take them over and go through it with them. The parents have to pay. All the kids are free. You just write your name down and you bring your ID card, and you get into the game farm for free. It's about an hour tour to go through that. And I went over and looked it over, and it's a real nice place. Arts and Crafts on Wednesday has been going on, and they finished up this week. I think the time frame that they gave us this year cut our figures down quite a bit. Some days we only had 3 or 4 children show up for that. but it was at 3 o'clock in the afternoon, which most people are just getting home from work, and it's hard to get their kids here. I'm hoping that maybe next year we can get a morning time or somewhere around lunch where we can get more kids involved in it. It is a good program, but just our time is bad. Archery. We're doing archery again. We're backing our time down. It was starting at 6. We're going to start at 5:30 because the sun's going down and it's getting darker soon. And for safety reasons, I'm backing the time down. Now we're going to start at 5:30. That's on Mondays, right over here at the town park. And you don't have to bring anything. Just call me and or let's put your name on the list outside here. I have one request. If anybody has with a large Christmas tree that they want to get transplanted or get rid of, let me know. Last December, I asked Dave McFarland if we could put a Christmas tree up or something out here so we could have lights and caroling in Christmas time. And I'm looking to get a big tree, something 10 or 12 feet high. I'm willing to move it myself. I just want to get a big tree if we can find somebody who wants to donate one. Mine on my farm is too big, so I don't have one. Other than that, that's all I have.
Thank you, Randy. It's a busy summer. Thank you. Any other public comment? Yes, ma'am.
I wanted to...
Name, please.
Barbara McEwen. I wanted to talk to Marcus here. Well, I'll talk to the board, but he can hear. I don't think we're against the cellular. I mean, it sounds like he was trying to sell us the cellular phones. I don't think we're against it. We're against the fact that we want to check into the ordinances and things before we go ahead. Because when we jump into things like this, we are very sorry afterwards. And so I think probably if he would give us just the time that we have, that we need, and that it might work out all right. But to come to us like this in trying to scare us into something like this, it's not a very good idea. And I believe Jim was right when he said that park in Clermont was very nice. It is very nice. And those people in Clermont worked really hard on it, and they had a lot of people that volunteered their time. I don't think they worried about liabilities, and I doubt whether they had very many. We had a nice park that was here and was progressing nicely, and it was stopped. And the kids would be using it right now had it not been stopped. And so I think this going ahead with this professional park and all this is not in the people's best interest. We came to you and we told you we didn't want the park. We had lots of people here that tried to tell you that we were not interested in having a professional do our park. That the people in Volney are professional enough for us. We had a lot of volunteers that would work here and to put that park in. And it was progressing very nicely. And so you didn't listen to us, you never do. And so we're going ahead with this park with all this expense. I mean, we're being taxed and taxed and taxed, and now we're going to be taxed more. And I don't think it's being fair to the people. You were elected to help us, not to hinder us. And all I've seen in the last 2 years is hindrances. I haven't seen anything that's helping us. You've got your hand in our pockets all the time. And this $1,000, is this part of that $5,000 that Howard helped raise there in the recreation program? That $1,000 that you just extended?
There is money. There is money to cover that.
Is it part of the $5,000? What I'm asking you.
Well, we did have a donation of, I believe, $2,000 from Whitewater's group when they first proposed or early on in their proposal.
And that's part of that for
Part of it,
$1,000?
yes.
You're not going looking above?
No.
Could
Could I interrupt? I just want to understand something myself here, Mr. McFarland. The money we spent so far, the $3,600 and this $1,000, isn't that coming out of our budget for recreation where we had $5,000 in there for? Or is that coming out of the general fund where we put money from developers?
As you're well aware, Howard, the original contract with Costa Associates is $4,500. And that would leave only $500 left in the parks account. However, there is dedicated money in the parks account, which is not part of the budget, and that would be where that additional $1,000 would come from.
Okay, that's what I'm asking. Thank you.
And Claudia keeps talking about liabilities. If we had volunteers doing the work, I would much rather see them pay a little bit on liabilities and pay $200,000 for a park. I think we would be saving money, even if we had to pay a few liabilities. But I doubt whether we would. Thank you.
Randy?
Yes, I got two comments. One on the cellular one, Syracuse Telephone Company. They really were concerned about their name and the goodwill of the people of Volney. They should try to find another location. There's locations just outside where they're at there now. I mean, they're playing hardball with us. And just like when city wanted to annex and all that, we don't like to be pushed out here in Volney. We're getting sick and tired of it, okay? I think they should try to find another location. I mean, they have towers all over. For goodwill and getting off our back, just find one close. There's open fields all over. Just a short distance away from down there. I have a cellular one. Well, I had one. I'm handing it in tomorrow. I'm sick and tired of the hardball. I'm done with that one. Okay. This is on the park. After our meeting with Tony the other night, you said that once tonight was over that we could go ahead and dig the test holes. Did anybody have a chance to check with Bob about using his equipment? Check with him. Tony said that as soon as I get the holes done. Okay. Can you call me as soon as you find out if he can't do it? Because you said that if he couldn't do it, I would do it. I'll bring my equipment down tomorrow if it has to be done. Because Tony said that he would come out as soon as I called him sometime this weekend and look at them so we could have our answer Monday or Tuesday. Is there a problem with that?
I mean, as soon as you check with Bob, if he can't do it, just give me a holler. Is there a problem with me digging the holes that we were talking about, if Bob can?
I don't see any problem.
Okay.
Any other public comment?
Yes, sir.
Dan Russo. I hope nobody minds if I change the subject. Now that the county water district's gone by the wayside, I was wondering if the town had any plans for the Seneca Hill area. I've gotten some calls from people up there over the last couple of weeks. Apparently water pressure problems and whatnot are getting worse. We had the fire there. It's going to be, we're just 3 weeks short of being a year since we had the fire down there and couldn't use the fire hydrant. Something needs to be done about that district. I don't know, Jess, do you know if are they paying maintenance charges? Are there maintenance charges included in their water bills?
Just if there's repairs to be made. There's no charge until, if something happens, then you get a price, and you get it fixed, then it's figured into the water districts, split up in the water district.
I know at times in the morning, from what they've told me in the morning, and sometimes late evening, I assume when people are getting ready to go to work and getting ready to go to bed, some people down toward the end of the line, it's down to just a trickle.
Yeah, I think I can answer that. As far as timing is concerned, I cannot answer that question. However, there is a new line that has been brought out to that area, principally to supply, well, the main reason it was extended was to supply the new hospital medical complex at Seneca Hill. It will go ahead. The timing may be a little bit off, a little bit further out than we anticipated, simply because of the project is not moving as fast without Fulton Hospital's participation. However, that will get a new line, and I think the problems will all be solved at that point in time.
What about repairing the fire hydrants?
I've asked the fire department if they would, and I've forgotten my request. It's been some time since I made that request, and I said, I don't care what it costs, we will find, in fact, I asked Just if he would follow it up. Not that I don't care what it costs, but I feel all fire hydrants should be operable, whether or not there is pressure behind them, because someday if there is pressure, they should be able to be opened.
They're useless.
Right now, and I think very honestly that is the responsibility of the Volney Volunteer Fire Department to get those open. And
Whose responsibility is it for it to pay for it, though?
The water district.
The water district.
So, what should the fire department do? Go ahead and fix them, or?
Go ahead and fix them. Shouldn't we check with the county to find out how soon that water line will come in, if it makes a difference?
Well,
No way,
it
wouldn't
wouldn't
make any difference.
because right now, even the few that do work, you can't get any water out of them. I mean, it just, you know, if you hook a line to a truck, you can't even, all you can do is engage the truck, you know, at an idle, and you're already drawing a vacuum on the line. You're gonna collapse lines if you do that, so. Right now, the hydrants are useless until the pressure is improved, but it would be nice to coordinate it so that both occurred at the same time rather than.
Yeah, well, that's why not be coordinated with the lines coming in, so people have the least interruption of water service in the area.
See, first of all your new fire trucks got what, 1,500, 2,000 gallon pumps on them?
Right.
Down in that pump house, you got 250 gallon
Right.
pumps. So you're only pushing 500 gallons of water and you're trying to suck 1,000.
Is there some reason why they can't fix the tower, or?
My understanding is that it could be fixed, but at great expense.
And this new line may take care of the problem, so it becomes.
That is why, with a new line, it becomes an unreasonable expense at this point in time.
Thank you. Can I make a mention to the fire department that they can start looking at repairing those, or?
Yes, if you would, please.
Okay, thank you.
I'd just like to respond to one thing to Dan. Last year, I was the fire liaison for the town when all that occurred, and I had numerous conversations with the residents there about that situation. And what I expressed to them was that anything that's done over there, they're going to have to bear the expense of it. It's not a town expense per se, it's a district expense for that water district. And what I suggested to them was, if they wanted to get some quick action on it, to come to the town board and present some petition or something so that we know that they're that concerned that they want something done right away. Otherwise, because they're going to foot the bill, and you know, it's for them to really pursue. It's there, they know it's there, we know it's there, and we know certain things have to be done. Maybe what we should do, if there's enough interest, is to have a special meeting and send out flyers or something to the people in that district, invite them to a meeting, sit down, and find out how much concern is there, and explain to them what has to be done to rectify the situation. And let them know also, like I told them, that this is an expense they're going to have to bear if they're willing to do it. And one woman said to me, well, gee, we're without fire protection. And I assured her she's not without fire protection. She has the same protection the rest of the town has. She's just missing out on some of the benefits of having that water district there that should be in place but aren't because of circumstances. So I think that is what we maybe need to do. If any of them are watching on TV, maybe they'll come to the next meeting and do that. Or if you would like to initiate something, Dave, it's up to the board.
I think before we did that, we ought to at least be able to give them some figures on.
Yeah, if the new fire department looked at it, we wouldn't have any information again.
I would suggest on the supervisor, you talk to the town attorney and find out how far anybody can go. I mean, yes, we get good prices. Can the fire company actually go out and hire somebody to fix these, get these hydrants working, and build a district, or has the town board got to approve it?
I think
Because in the long run, you find out, you talk to the attorney, the town board is still responsible, even if it is a district.
Yes, I think the first step, other than actually repairing the hydrants, I think the first step would be for me to contact the Scriba Water District, from whom we receive everything, the service, etc. We are billed for the water, we are billed for the transmission. It is basically their responsibility. So I will talk to them, see what is involved, and if, Dan, you could look to the cost of repairing the hydrants and what is involved, and I will work at the other end. Okay, thank you. Any other, yes?
Donna Kessler, I don't know if I should be addressing this to you or not, but a few months ago you read a letter about getting a school sign, a school flashing light or something up by East Volney School, and I know that it was supposed to be transferred to Mr. Buck or something, and I just wondered if you had any update on it.
Like so many things of its kind, you pass it along, and I think it very honestly has probably disappeared in the labor of
Probably the state.
probably in the state.
At the state level.
Uh,
The state moves slow.
And I think one of the questions was who pays for it. And the school, I think, was looking at it, and they were shaking their heads. And I've forgotten all the details, but I will research it now.
Okay, thank you. And I want to echo.
Installation and
Yeah.
maintenance.
Yes.
I know the county did pass it on to the state.
I just wondered with school coming up, that would be a good idea, since there were numerous accidents there last year. I want to echo everyone else too, with the park matter. I know you don't want to hear it anymore, but, you know, you spent our money, and I know there's nothing we can do about it, but I don't like it. I still don't like it, and when I wasn't at the last meeting because of other commitments, but I watched Mr. Cobb's here, and I started having deja vu because I remembered Valerie doing the same thing for our committee. She went through the same thing. The plan was just about the same, and we didn't have to pay any money.
Yes.
Charles Martin. I heard again somebody mention the park being costing $200,000 to the town. I've been at all the meetings. No one has said the town is willing to fund $200,000 to pay for a park. Not once. They talked about having somebody, if we're going to do it at all, to make sure it's done right, to make sure the plan is right. That is an upland swamp. You couldn't even get vehicles into it last year. It very definitely needs preparation. It's quite different from the land of Palermo. It's a special case. If we're going to have it there, then there is work that has to be done on that site to prepare it for the park. I don't see that the cost of the professional plan was that great in overall cost. Nobody's talking about having contractors do it and spending $200,000.
Any other public comment? I will hear you too. That's okay.
I just wanted to tell Jesse and Howard, thank you for getting together an informational meeting. I thought that it was really necessary, and a lot of people wanted that, and it was seen all over, and I think it helped bring the issues on both sides out for people to determine how they vote on the water district.
The issue I want to address now is the road that you've agreed to tar and stone for Mr. Rowley. I've lived in the Glen for 12 years, and when I moved there, the original road was a tar and stone road. And there is no curbing, there's no gutter system designed into the development. We've had a lot of problems with drainage. We have a lot of problems with runoff off the streets. My driveway gets about 3 inches of dirt coming off the roads every spring piled up on one corner. There are a couple of people's driveways who are virtual lakes because there is nowhere for any of the water to go to. I was happy to hear Mr. Rowley talk about his improved construction of the road in the Glen too, and he discussed drainage systems to some extent. I would highly recommend that the town considers, when they accept a road by any developer, that it truly was designed properly. It's not easy to design a road properly. I have 2 textbooks that I brought with me that I studied in college, one on soil mechanics and one on highway materials, and I don't think any of us could sit down and read them tonight. It's a complicated issue. It's not easy to do, But in the long run, the taxpayers of Volney are going to pay for Mr. Rowley's road if the town accepts it, and it is ill-designed. Mr. Kerfine himself admitted to me when the paving was done in the Glen that he had no idea if it would hold up. And it's not too likely that it would hold up. After 2 years, it's falling apart in many places. The sub-base is sand, and I don't believe there's anything underneath it. So I hope that the highway superintendent and the town will develop some kind of a criteria to accept roads into Volney, because all of us